Hi, I'm Laurie with To the Trade, and Niall's not here right now. He doesn't feel well, which is such a bummer, but we have an amazing designer here that it was actually on his list to interview. So he's going to be super jealous that he's not here with you. Marie Cloud, I want to talk to you about your business from the very, very beginning. First, introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Such a fan of you both. So it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah.
I am Marie Cloud of Indigo Pruitt Design Studio, and we're located here in the Carolinas, serving the Southeast region for the most part. And we create soulful spaces, spaces that feel very intentionally curated. We serve both residential and commercial clients. Residential is our heart, our core, but we love partnering with small businesses and businesses that are very intentional about taking their existing brand and creating an aesthetic within their actual brick and mortar.
Oh, that's fantastic. So how do
Yeah.
I was going to start with some initial business questions, but that you do commercial and residential, do you find, and I just, this is like a theory that I have in general, is that like
All right.
residential is, is, where you can really play and do some very, unique things. And in commercial, in some ways you can play more because, it doesn't have to be like a livable space, but in other ways you're really boiling down concepts that you might already have fleshed out and what's easier to the palate of the general consumer that's out there. So you're like, this is tailored, residential is this is tailored to you personally, and
Mhm.
commercial is we want to boil down the best things that would appeal to the masses.
I think it depends on the type of commercial work that it is. For example, we renovated a mega church lobby a few years back, and that was more of appealing to the masses, right? And their ethos and vision and overall mission was very rooted in multi-ethnic, multi-generational, and so it's a beautiful melting pot of all the things. And so it was important that we were able to capitalize on that concept in reference to their design. So I think, some commercial projects, depending on who the targeted audience is, who their ideal client and market is, you have to be intentional about creating for the masses. But I love working with boutique organizations or boutique firms that have a very specific brand that has a heavy emphasis on who they are. That's very unique because it allows us to apply the same principles that we have when we're trying to figure out who our client is and what do they like, what do they dislike, what their home brand is, for lack of better words, right? What is that? What does that mean? We're doing the same thing with these small businesses. We're partnering with them. We're learning, like, hey, tell me everything. Let's ideate together. Tell me about your brand. Tell me, when did you start this business? What's the why behind it? Why did you choose this name, right? We're really diving into the weeds of who they are as a brand, just like we're diving into who these families are as a unit. So I think it kind of just depends on the type of business and the caliber of clientele that they're bringing in.
Right. So if it's more of that's very interesting. So if it's more of a you know branded company, it's not trying to reach the masses. You're giving them this almost the same treatment that you would be giving a client in that way. And does that actually is really interesting because our first question for you was that you create these soulful spaces. So to
Mhm.
me, that's about getting to the nitty-gritty of that business too, and really asking those same kinds of, workflow questions. I mean, you want to make a
Yeah.
design, no matter what it is, for any commercial or residential, that's functional. That's
Right.
like, of course.
Right.
But like to really hit you know, there are some corporations who are like soulless,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So you're like,
Uh-huh.
okay, what is your soul
Yeah.
face going to look like when you're Google?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just,
Mm-hmm.
throwing it out there. But
Yep.
that's interesting. And you really like and gravitate to those businesses that have a clear defined vision, probably because they align with you because of your social spaces and your marketing materials too, and that you're there to try to like get to that essence
Yeah,
of
for sure.
the business as well as a person.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something special when you have a service a service offering that you're very intentional about, and then you partner with an organization that also values intentionality behind decision making and general selections, and you know how they navigate their business. When those two type of parties come together, I think that's when the magic happens, because both of you value decision making through intentionality, and you have this filter of your brand, of your vision, of your values that you're making decisions through. And so though that's my sweet spot. I love partnering with people that actually value the journey, that actually value pulling back the layers, asking questions, and creating a filter for decision making and overall project planning.
Yeah. So you want your ideal client. That's interesting to me. So your ideal client has, even the way they implement decision making and the process of design is important to you. Not overall aesthetic and budget being the first primarily, reasons you'd work with them. You also care on that level, like how they are going to get to that decision making
I think both
process.
aesthetic and budget is absolutely
Number
priority.
one.
We are
Yeah.
not moving those. To be clear, we are not
Yeah.
moving those out of the priority list. But I think I prefer clients that care deeply about their homes, or want to care deeper about their homes and the spaces that they dwell within. Sometimes they may not know the impact of their environment and the impact of creating just a beautiful safe haven for their space, and the impact of that of their overall well-being. They may not
Sure.
know. I love coming into those spaces and educating them on that. So we're not just creating a beautiful home, right? That's a byproduct of hiring a designer. You bring anyone in for that. But a space that is beautiful but feels good, and it does something for your overall well-being, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the layer that we're trying to be very intentional about. It is the only way that I'm designing moving forward, right? It's not just let's create these beautiful spaces. Let's take it beyond that. So I want clients to get excited about that. I want clients to seek me out for that extra additional layer of wellness that you don't just get from the pretty pictures.
I love that. I mean, I'm seeing more and more designers move into this science space where they really understand the science behind how our brains react to design. And I
Yeah.
think that that's definitely something that the clients are undereducated about, but really respond to because I think we all understand on some level we're impacted by our brain chemistry. That's why we know we are manipulated by ads or
Yes.
how you
Yeah.
retargeted that ad that you just talked about and you're like, how did that happen? Well, we all
Uh-huh.
know that that's happening behind the scenes, but we don't know
Yeah.
how we can use that for good in our own lives and our own
You
homes.
use it for good for our clients, but also remembering that we're still operating in a business, right? And so if we know that clients are a lot more sensitive to wellness and self-care and those things, I feel like we're doing our industry a disservice and our business a disservice if we're not marketing towards that, if we're not learning about that. And so we were recently certified in neuroaesthetics through Science and Design, and we've just been like completely entrenched in this science and the intersection of mental health and wellness and design and science, and how they all kind of come together. And I have found that the emotional ties of all that is really exciting, and it sets me on fire, and I love that. It kind of comes naturally out of me. But there's a line of business that we can't overlook, that we have to market towards that, right? Like we have to market to the subconscious. If we're having medical professions saying our spaces are literally healing people, why are we not marketing towards the subconscious of our clients, right? If we're
Right.
learning these things.
Yes,
So, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. I love that you're diving into that and you're learning how to change your marketing to attract those clients who care about those things. And also, like, it is the truth. Like, I have witnessed and talked to many different designers who know that their clients have gotten promotions, gotten like literally better health checks at their doctor's
Yes.
offices because of design, because of how
Yeah.
they reacted to the environment in which they're living. And
Yep.
it sounds, you know, it, it's one of those things I think that the average everyday person might be a little bit like distrustful of that
Hmm.
process. But to
Hmm.
me, it's kind of like, there are for me, I'm not an interior designer, but I talk to interior designers every day. And before I came
Hmm.
into this industry, I was in the fine art industry for a really long time. And, while I appreciate design and I appreciate art, I wouldn't say that I am a practicer. I practice it as much as you all do. You are the artists, the artists, the fine artists that I worked with previously, or the designers or artists. And things that you notice, the detail that you notice is
Hmm.
overlooked often
Yeah.
by a regular person. And
Yeah.
that's why you'll see these really talented people, really wealthy people, really smart people be able to say, look, I thought I could do it. I just bought really nice things and I put it all in
Hmm.
my house, and then it doesn't look right. It looks like crap anyway. So, and then I
Yeah.
just finally broke down and hired the designer. And oh my gosh, it's
Yeah.
changed my life. And you have no idea how many times I've talked to the client side
Yeah.
from this, because I go a little bit deeper and
Love it.
I'm listening and hearing those words over and over and
Hmm.
over again. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering why today in 2025, we still out there have a reputation in this interior design industry that all you guys do is really have access to good product and know, like the average everyday consumer still doesn't really know what interior design is. They think it's shopping. They still
Yeah.
think it's you buy products and you have access to good discounts. you
Yeah.
know? And we're still
And
fighting that battle.
I think one thing that I've had to like really challenge myself on, and I think it's a challenge for our industry in general. I think there's a level of boldness and confidence that we need to like turn up in the industry. I think we kind of
Agree.
we mouse around the stereotypical image that the world puts on us. We mouse around it and we don't hold it to be true, right? This research is out there, but this research has always been out there. But no one is getting on these panels, getting on the stage saying, hey, this is a requirement for your overall well-being. Here's why, right?
Right.
Let's pull up literally the evidence and let's boldly speak to it. Let's unapologetically put our work out on display more consistently. I think we just mouse around too much in this industry. We are putting in the work. For the time we're doing work that we shouldn't be doing, right? We're
Sure.
doing contractor work, we're doing architecture work, we're doing work that just goes unnoticed. And I would love for us to just go boldly and speak confidently in what we're doing and the work we're putting into the world. So
I love
I've had
that.
to challenge myself on that a little bit more. And I think it has definitely changed the way that I show up.
Right. And I think this is a gift that interior designers inherently have. And it's when we talk about the science, it's not that the science is studying design what designers do automatically. Like designers always have had this ability to see where things should fit in the
Yeah.
space organically, and where like they have just like, and if you're listening, you're a designer, when you go into a room and the furniture is not laid out properly, and it's like a little tingle in your back that you're like, oh my gosh, this is wrong and I can't stand
Mhm.
it. And you're just sitting
Yeah.
there,
You're
and the
like
whole
dying
time you're
inside.
sitting there, it's like a gnat,
Uh-huh.
a mosquito buzzing around you, where you're like, I just want to change this a little bit
Yeah.
because this does
Yeah.
not work. And all of you have that ability. And what that is a a given talent
Yeah.
that spots it. Your brain works that way, where your brain sees, patterns where the average everyday person doesn't see a pattern. And
Yeah.
that's a given talent that you have. And that's what the scientists are studying, is
Yes.
why does
Why? Yeah.
a certain person have this talent, and why does the brain react to those patterns in the way that they do. But when
Correct.
things are in the place that they should be in, and there is a right way, that's the other thing, is there is a right way and a wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
There is, and the brain will see it. And you
Mm-hmm.
might not even know your brain is seeing it. You
Yeah.
might be thinking, like, I'm just irritated in the morning when I wake up, but it could be literally because of where your coffee maker is just a little bit more inconvenient than
Yeah.
it's not spaced properly to where you're getting your coffee. And that little irritation, it's not something you're picking up as I'm irritated because of this. It's something
Right.
that you're just seeing as like, I'm annoyed in the morning. It's
Yeah.
morning. We blame it on things like that when it's like when things are in their proper place and when things are organized in the right way, it allows us not to think about it. And when we don't think
Yes.
about it, that's the clarity that we have for like relaxation. And we're like these minor little inconveniences are what's driving us all not mad, of course, and how designers can change our lives. So what
Hmm.
inspired this pivot to wellness? Like when was it learning about it at trade shows, or did you really have a real life instance where it was this was something that you had to tackle?
Yeah, so I think it was just like a build up of, are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Okay. I think it kind of was just a build up of moments that I'm naturally just hard headed. Like I don't listen to urges. It takes me a long time to like really just move on things because I just feel like I'm being overly
That's actually
dramatic.
a good thing, honestly. I mean, you don't want to be that designer who's reacting to every little bright, shiny object. That's a very good thing.
Yeah, well, I'll take you. Thank you. And so I think I've always kind of had just this inkling that I lead from emotion. Like I'm naturally very sensitive. I'm very in tune with my emotions. I have no problem, articulating how I feel the minute I feel it. And so I found myself when I was consulting with clients, I would ask them questions that was outside of the typical design realm, right? My intake was probably a little bit more lengthy and a lot of bit my questions were a lot deeper than your typical designer questionnaire. So where it kind of sometimes felt like, you know, I'm asking you questions that your therapist may have been asking you, like, what is the root of this? Where is it coming from? And so I started seeing how clients were responding to those things, which was they were a little uncomfortable, right? Which for me is always a good sign, right? That uncomfortability is a sign that we've hit something, and just started navigating and watching how they responded throughout the journey. And then at reveal, it was always an emotional reveal. It was always, oh my God, I feel so seen, right? The
Oh,
privilege
wow.
of being able to come alongside someone and at the very end, them telling you, like, I've never felt so seen before. Like, I had no idea that this was who I am. And so, like, paying attention to that, but then also paying attention to, like, as I'm evolving and growing as a woman, personally, like, what is my home doing for me? Going through postpartum with my kids, how am I being intentional about carving out self care and a little corner for me in my home and watching how I'm responding to that? Um, and so I think it's again like a combination of like my personal journey through, you know, just kind of healing some old wounds and growing as a woman and being intentional about my space and how I'm curating it, and then applying those learned experiences with clients. And
Right.
then I would say a couple years ago, I was at Market. I'm on High Point by Design board, and we were partnering with Science and Design for a symposium that they had. And I was there to support, kind of just be whatever support they need as a partner. And I was locked in after like three sentences. The fact that they brought in evidence and actual kind of an academic foundation for what I had been feeling and what I had been experiencing, and why am I feeling inclined to ask these questions? Why are my clients so moved by the way that I design? I'm not just creating beautiful design. And I knew that, right? I knew I was very talented, but I did not quite know that my line of questioning had that much impact on client. And then the result of that was just very moving. So I just
Yeah,
jumped all in,
absolutely.
and moved into a lot of researching and took the certification course. And um, I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of the science and design world, but then also the intersection of mental health and design as well. So I wouldn't say I am, full biophilic and neuroaesthetics, infusing all of them, but there's elements of of all of those within my design, which is I'm chuckling in my mind because I'm like I'm just very layered, as you can tell. Like there's just
Yeah,
very
no, I
I'm just
absolutely,
nuanced in the way that I approach things because I fully embrace this and that is true
right,
about me, and so this
right.
and that can be true about my client and the way that they appreciate and value design.
Right. It can be beautiful, it can be functional, but it also can heal a wound you don't even know existed. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah,
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 I love that. And I love that you have clients who have that moment where they really feel seen. I think that that is, there's nothing more, no greater feeling than doing that for someone. It's such a
yeah.
service to be able
Oh,
to, I didn't make I made that I really was looking at you and your
hmm,
needs and
yeah,
who you are. And this is so custom to you. And I think that the general public doesn't recognize that this is what design really is, that it's always
no,
so very, and I'm not saying many designers go as deeply. Not every designer goes as deeply and asks the questions you're probably asking, but probably should. Probably should.
hmm.
What are some of the invasive sort of questions that you ask? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so we'll ask questions around childhood. Like I kind of want to hear some of those highlight childhood memories and such. And
Good
I
and
want
bad or mostly
to
good? Like that.
I try my best not to lead with good or bad. I kind of just lead into the conversation. You'll be surprised how quickly they go into bad before they celebrate the good.
Okay. I'm curious.
And
Yeah.
so sometimes that does help. And then from there we'll extract certain things that they don't know we're picking up on and they don't really know until like the reveal. So for instance, we had a young lady that shared that one of her most fond memories was her late grandmother used to bake apple pie like every time she came down south for the summer. Like that was like her go-to. So when we had the reveal, we literally lit apple pie candles throughout the home and like tucked them away. So that fragrance in her kitchen renovation was a trigger to grandmother, right? Like she
Oh,
shared such fond memories. We always include some sort of aromatherapy or fragrance in the reveal, but how can we connect that with their journey? Not so that it smells good and it creates this beautiful backdrop, but what does it do for them? But then also
right.
being very diligent that you're not triggering certain things. So it's a delicate dance, but I think sensory experience is a whole nother way to take your design to a whole nother level. So we're always going to have a aroma in the air. We're always going to have a sweet treat on their way into the reveal. You're going to want to touch. You're going to want to feel. There is a playlist that is curated for
Oh,
your home that is
you are
ready to
speaking
go
my
for
language.
you.
I
Yeah,
love it.
right. But that is how we appeal like human to human. Like sensory
Right.
experience is something that we all can connect on. So I'm
Well,
always trying to find a way to build a bridge, right? Yes,
you're
I'm
also
the
teaching them
designer.
how to live. You're teaching them that
Yes,
this is what you can have in your everyday life. If these
every
are things
day.
that make you joyous, like this
Yes.
should be part of your even if it's just that moment they came in the reveal and the music is their first preferred music and their scent is the scent that makes them most comforted. That is something you can do in your everyday life and you're teaching them that along the way as you're talking to them, like you're
Yes.
probably giving them the tools to make their life better along the way. So like for instance, like I have this like little life hack that I was just telling people because I just went on vacation and I will buy a new perfume when I go on vacation and then I'll wear it the entire vacation. I'll spray the room with it, I'll wear
Yeah.
it, I'll wear it, like it'll be like all over me. And then I kind of put it away when I come home and then I
Mhm.
only use it when I'm like in the mood for that vacation, whatever. And I'm like,
Yes.
oh, I need the Cozumel perfume because I'm feeling
Yes. I
Cozumel
love
today,
that.
you know?
I love
And
that.
that's something we do. And it's like, we don't recognize, I think, as humans that, the smells, the sounds, the tastes, whatever the whole sensory experience is part of our journey and really does set the mood. I'm also a big believer in like romancing your life and I will
Yes.
have a playlist for different kinds of foods. And when I have dinner, I have a playlist on that matches, like
You
not
are
always like
talking my energy. That is what I'm talking about. I need a playlist for all the moods, all the
all
highs
the
and
moods.
lows.
Like
There
what
is a
mood are you
playlist
in?
to
What
it.
what it doesn't always have to be, so sometimes like it is what I feel like for that particular meal. It doesn't necessarily have
Yeah.
to match like if it's not like necessarily like Mexican movie music with Mexican food, but it can be. But sometimes
Yeah.
I'm like I want 50s music right now with this. Like,
Yep.
this is the mood I'm feeling right now. And
Yes.
those kinds of, I have so many playlists. I have playlists for people. I have playlists for, I'm like I speak in playlist.
Yes, same, same. We're starting to bring the playlist that we've created for clients and for like our show houses, and starting to bring them over to our blog and website, so where people
Whoa,
literally, occasionally I'll post it on my stories, but so many people have been asking, like, can you please
sure.
share the playlist? So we're literally putting like different curated playlists that's rooted in home. Like, hey, this is the work from home playlist. Hey, this is the morning sunrise where you just need that burst of energy when
I
when you're
love it.
sipping your cup of coffee. This is when I wind down and take my bath. You have to, like you said, romanticize these moments.
Yes.
It may feel overly dramatic, but aren't we worth it? Like,
Yes, we
aren't we
are.
worth all of that goodness?
We are. We are. Why do we have to wait for the best vacation to spoil ourselves? We can do it
Yes.
in a thing like a bath or in a thing like, just having a nice dinner at home with your family. It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be, you know, fancy things. I mean, we had four kids, so we were kids at home all the time. So
Yeah.
my husband and I had to find those romantic moments.
Right.
We do a Valentine's Day. I remember Valentine's Day dinner. We'd always do fondue, and my husband would secretly call it fondue me. But like
I
we'd
like
get the kids,
it.
the kids would have like we get bread and meats and cheeses, and we do like let them dip it. They were having the
Yeah.
best time, and it's just like these little moments you have that are just like your husband has a little moment with you, but your kids are having fun, and like nobody's
Yeah.
the wiser, and it's
I
a
love
good
it.
time. I love that that is
Yeah.
part of your design philosophy because it must actually give the clients a sense that they can do this themselves too, that they
Yeah.
can take the foundation that you're building for them and they can elevate their own lifestyle as
Yeah.
well. So is that why that now that you're connecting to me, why you care about that from the client perspective, that the person really wants to elevate themselves,
Yes.
not just their
Yes.
like change their home, but they really want to change a little bit about themselves, maybe live a little bit better. Maybe they want to exercise more or they want, to have cherish the downtime a little bit more,
Hmm. Hmm.
and give a little self-care. We're all guilty of not giving
Yeah.
ourselves self-care.
Of course.
So,
Right.
those kinds of things. That's fantastic. So, has there been a client that didn't get it? That wasn't that they were a good client financially, blah blah, but they didn't get what you're bringing to the table, or have they all been accepting of it?
I think I think in the moment, I've never had a client fully embrace it. I think there are clients that think because some of the sensory add-ons during reveal is just to add on for the reveal and the
Sure.
presentation, which is awesome, which is great. That I'm fine with that as well. If they don't get that, I would love for you to consider adding these layers to your everyday life, right? We have that conversation. But for me, during those times, I have to remember that it is part of my presentation package. I'm not tied to whether they get it or not. They're hiring me to create a design that is insanely badass, that is jaw dropping, and that aligns with who they are. The lifestyle layer is an added cherry on top. And so I'm okay if they don't completely get it. But I can't say I've ever witnessed a client that felt like they don't get it.
Okay, good.
And
Yeah.
it kind of goes with it. It feels like a nice surprise, but it also feels like, well, yes, of course, this will feel very elevated. We've had this journey and this time together, so you kind of know how we operate, you know what we value, and it feels very streamlined to the process. Doesn't feel like a, oh my gosh, all of a sudden this wow factor. We've kind of wowed them throughout the process to where they know when we get to this reveal, we're gonna feel it. This is a moment for us. We're locked in.
Yeah. Do some clients, I know I have talked to people who are clients, and some of them are reluctant to even have a reveal. Do you work with clients who don't want the reveal at the end of it or no?
I haven't had a client who does not want to reveal, but due to timelines and the scale of projects, we don't always have that grand reveal that
moment.
you typically see, because sometimes you have to dice up installs. Sometimes we're on projects for such a long time. They've kind of seen, the various phases. But as much as we can, we try and do the reveal. There's sometimes where we're so exhausted by the time we're done with this project. They want all of that, and we're kind of like, can we just get out of here? You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
those are the times where we really do. We always have a revisit moment, which is when we go back to our initial notes, where we go back to the why, where we kind of reframe our mind as to why we brought this client on. Why is this so important to them? Before we step foot back into their home and show them all of this hard work, I want to make sure that I'm rooted in them and not my own selfish mindset. So that helps us kind of get into that mindset in
Oh,
a
I
more
love
intentional
that.
way. Yeah.
I know it's got to be hard for, for you, for the client. Sometimes you just get to that end phase and you're just like, oh my God, I'm sick of you. What is the single most like draining or moment that you've experienced in the world of design?
Woo. All right.
I know.
The most draining. Oh, yeah, man. I don't know. I think when I hate revisions. Can I say that out loud?
Yeah, say
I
it.
re-
Say
I think
it.
because I rarely we don't
Yeah.
we're not giving you first, second, and third place options. We're literally presenting to you the best project, or
Well, I
the
think what they
best.
don't understand is that when you do that, it affects everything else.
It
Like
changes
you're making
everything.
this
Yeah.
revision, it's going to affect everything else we chose as well. You can't just
Yeah.
revise the chair and then that's not going to play off of everything else that we
Right.
selected. You know what I mean? Like that. I mean, it
Yep.
has an impact on. You have to go through literally every product you've picked as well to make sure
It's
that
that.
works. You know what I
That's the
mean? It's a
draining
real
piece.
thing.
That's it right there,
Yeah.
where and then they position it as though can we just, right? Like there is no
And you're
can we
like, it's
just,
not
right there.
just.
Yeah, it is a domino into all of that. So I think that piece can be draining. And then I think also growth and scaling is such a beautiful thing. And we all want that for our business. I think one layer that we forget in that instance is that we're probably going to have to pivot on our processes. We're going to have to, change this and that. So the implications of growth, I think, is one of the most underrated assessments of your business, and how much it impacts you and how many more tasks it adds to your overall
Well,
daily
yeah,
scope,
you're adding being a supervisor onto your other job. And
Yeah.
if you don't have like, there are so many designers, I think, that get into hiring at the point where they are already too overworked to begin with. So then adding
Yes.
on training and supervision of an employee onto what they already are doing because they've maxed themselves out
Right.
becomes almost, I don't want to say it's like self-defeating, but it kind of works against them because
For sure.
you don't have the systems in place to do it yet. So
It
whenever we talk to designers, who are fairly new and they're sort of starting to ramp up, I'm always like, get your SOPs down as much as you
Yes.
can. Like Scribe How is an amazing tool for designers out there that
Hmm.
will like it's just like a online site
Yeah.
that will follow what you're doing. So if
What you
this is
do.
how you
Hmm.
order from Kravit, you can order do the order like you would normally do it, and then it makes like an SOP for your standard operating procedure for your employee to show them step by step. This is what I click, and this is how I do it, and this is what
Yep.
the process looks like. And the more of that you have, the better. For your daily most used tasks that you want to pass on.
Hmm.
And then like the picking of how you do that, right? Like, so you want an employee who takes some of the tasks. We just had this big conversation. So I was just in Birmingham talking to Jackie Paulson from Home Design Guild and met with a bunch of different editor-in-chief for like Veranda and, Southern Home Living and things. We're just having a big conversation about some of these things. And one
Yeah.
of the conversations was that hiring process can be very overwhelming because you have this situation where you want to offload tasks that are not necessarily tasks that you do well. But when we hire, we tend to like people who are just like us. We want to hire that person who gets along with us and does this, and then
Yeah.
you're hiring someone who maybe has the same skill set that you have versus the
Yeah.
skill set you don't have. You want to hire really, really smarter people than you
Yes.
that do something that you can't do, that are,
Absolutely.
but you also don't want to hire someone in a role of, like, let's say, junior designer, and you're never letting them be able to junior design. They only
Yeah.
can do Instagram or
Yeah.
CAD work. That's not fair either. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think that a tricky part of this industry, and you can correct me if you're wrong, if I'm wrong, but is the lack of business education
Mhm.
from school, so that, like, even things like management training,
Yeah.
I know it sounds boring, but like having management training, how to be a good manager is not easy. It's something
Yeah.
people learn over time. Like, business administration is a real job where there's real
Hmm.
training. So expected to wear those hats immediately because you started a firm,
Yeah.
um, is tricky. It's really, really tricky. And I
Yeah.
love that you care to learn that, and that you're treating scaling in a very thoughtful way, because it's not an easy, it's not an easy thing to do, and to do it well, and to have a
Yeah.
good reputation out there, and be a good steward to other younger designers coming up, and helping other people in this industry learn, and but also protecting your own IP,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
right?
Absolutely.
you know
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're definitely spot on with, there's definitely not enough education on it at all. And then my background's design. That was my undergrad, and I had to take additional classes. And even with those additional
Sure.
classes, I didn't feel equipped. I interned
Yeah.
starting my sophomore year at a commercial firm all the way through postgrad, and I still did not feel equipped, when it was time to get out there in the world. I would say I probably learned my best business skills through working other careers. I worked for Sherwin-Williams for a number of years, and I went through their management training programs, and so that helped me with
Corporate can help.
supervising, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
P&L, and how to oversee these stores and all of that, and so those things definitely help. But when it comes down to applying those school lessons in real life practice, yeah, there's definitely some gaps there and some
Sure, sure.
opportunities for sure.
Yeah. And I love that you've taken this as a position to, like, you do give back. You
Yeah,
also try to educate others. You are a great community member. I mean, you
thank
are
you.
in there talking to other designers, not only in interior design community, but in other communities as well, where you're really trying to make sure the next generation of designers
Yeah,
are getting that much further faster by learning from your mistakes. And not every designer does that. Not every
yeah,
designer really shares the nitty-gritty of, like, hey, I wouldn't do this.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. Well,
this is
and
how we're making money. Those kinds of real, real truths.
yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's a lot of things just boil down to like who you are to the core is going to be the same traits that's going to show up in your business, right? My family values servanthood and leadership, and my faith is based in serving others, and how can we bring people along the way? And quite frankly, as a Black woman, it is literally my goal and my duty to make sure that I am reaching back to people that look like me and sharing the cheat code and sharing, the steps and mistakes that I've made along the way, so that they don't have to worry about that. I didn't have that, and so I'm trying to just make sure that more importantly, I think sharing my mistakes and my slip ups is probably more helpful than sharing, I've done this and I've done that.
Well,
That
that helps
that
too, though. I mean, it gives people confidence to know they can. When they
Yeah, for
see
sure.
you doing those things and being involved in this organization and that organization, sometimes I just think that, it gives people permission to be able to know
Mhm.
they can do that too. So I'm
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
both of those things are really helping that next feature designer. They're
yeah,
seeing you out doing it. That tells them, if she can do it, I can do it. You
for
know,
sure, for sure. Yeah,
and that's fantastic. I think that that's a part of it too. And you're at High
yeah,
Point. You're at involved in different organizations and trying to make the world of interior design more welcoming to
Mm.
people of color, to people, that are coming up, even just new designers along the way that need that extra vote of encouragement and
Yeah.
understanding that it is something you can do, and it's something that you can learn and grow and build, a life for yourself. And that
Yeah.
it's encouraging to watch the success stories, of course, for so
Yeah.
many designers out there who maybe are, especially in this economic time where it's a little bit nerve-wracking for all of us, not knowing
Mhm.
what tomorrow is going to bring.
Right.
And I think, it's now more than ever that we need to see these people who are, maintaining their businesses, growing their businesses in tough times, as well
Yeah.
as the easier times, like the the during COVID, everyone was renovating their homes, and now it's
Yeah.
like and people are a little bit more nervous about spending those dollars, and
Yeah.
business has gotten a little bit different for a lot of people. So
Hmm.
it's exciting to see people who are still challenging that and growing within the organization. What is next
Yeah.
for you? What do you see as the next big, step for you and your brand?
Yeah, let's see. I guess to kind of condense it, I'm in a space where I design and design will always be kind of like the core of my passion and my business. But I think there's so many layers and gifts and talents that I've just been privileged to explore over the last few years. And so I am, deep diving into what those things are and how can I serve my clients better. That is my primary goal right now, is refining my systems, my processes, the way that I serve my clients in a way that, is still at a certain level of excellence, but also aligns with the lifestyle that me and my family wants, ensuring that, I'm not leading back into another burnout season. I just had an incredible yet crazy 7 months, and I have to make sure that the future of Indigo Pruitt keeps me in a healthy space for my family first and foremost. And so I'm just trying to figure out what those rhythms look like, and we're building, we've brought on a few team members, and we're refining these processes so that I'm not doing everything and that my hands aren't in everything, but it also frees me up to exercise some other muscles that I'm very, very excited about. How can I continue to, like you said, be a steward to the community? How can I continue to reach back and share things? So
And develop
that's kind.
product lines.
Yeah, yeah. We just launched a
Yeah,
textile and wallpaper line with Spoonflower, and
I
that's
love it.
very exciting. Yeah, thank you. So that was my way of trying something new. Product,
Sure.
is always in the pipeline for a designer, but this was my way of trying something new with an organization that I trust, that I love, that I knew would not be a heavy lift, but also would be very representative of me. And I didn't feel as though I had to shed any of myself, which is a non-negotiable for partnerships for me. So how can I, just continue to build this the way I'm point a design empire, right?
Right.
But also beefing
But
up the
also,
business.
right, also caring about yourself and along the way,
Exactly.
which I can
Exactly.
say is a real problem. So I know a lot of interior designers, behind the scenes have had conversations with designers, household names that,
Yeah.
all of us know that are really prolific careers, and they're speaking everywhere. They have a million product lines and, have suffered health issues because they've been so burned out. And
Yep.
and you give and give and give, and watching that happen and learning the sacrifice to build that empire sometimes does come at your own personal risk. How can you engineer it in a different way so you can still build the empire you want to build? Maybe it's not going to be as big. Who knows? Maybe it'll be a smaller empire, but maybe
Yeah.
it will be bigger because there are so many wonderful productivity tools. AI is changing the game on
Yeah.
productivity. So maybe productivity tools out there that will make it easier for you to do some of the tasks so that you can build the same size empire or bigger with less like personal hours for your
Yeah.
own voice, so that you can still, you know, have time for your own life and your kids and your family and
Yeah.
how you live your life. I love that that's a concern for you and that that is how you're approaching this because it's a whole, you know what it is that's really, I'm just like, just hit me, is you're doing for yourself what you do for your clients,
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
you
And
know,
that
paying
is
attention to the
the
details, you
that
know?
that's the key for me. I get asked often, about caring for my clients, and I I unapologetically say it is selfish, right? For I have to care for them well because my lifestyle, my family, and my self and soul care is priority. And what comes after that, they get the outflow. And it just so happens that that is goodness and it is serving them well because I'm in a healthy space in this season. The minute that that gets off kilter and their priorities, become first
More
over mine,
priority. Yeah,
that
yeah.
is when issues occur. That is when we make mistakes. That's when I'm not in the best creative space. And so
Right.
just trying to be vigilant on that, but then also, like you said, making sure those systems and processes speak to that for sure.
Yeah. It's so crazy to me that it's little paying attention to, and it's a tipping point too. So it could be small little things that you're doing in your day to
Yeah.
day where you're on vacation or it's an evening with your kids and you're like, I'll just answer this one thing. I'll just do this one thing. And it starts to erode
It does.
your downtime and then it gets to a point where you don't even know how to have downtime
Yeah.
because you are, and some of this is hard because honestly, and I feel this because I work in this industry with you,
Mhm.
it's so hard because you love it. And so
I
it's
know.
easy for it to take over because you
Yeah.
actually love it. And it's exciting to talk about the new products. And it's exciting to have a call with your client. And it's exciting to talk to a colleague and just like
Yeah.
geek out about design. It's fun.
See, it is. It is. And I feel you wholeheartedly. But that, I think it brings it full circle back to our original conversation of that's why it's so important to romanticize your life. That's why it's so important to like literally create this beautiful life to where, yeah, it's fun. It's great. I enjoy creating this design for you, but nothing beats spending time with my kids. Nothing beats me making
Right.
a cup of coffee and putting my phone on do not disturb,
Right.
it's almost as though I can't have this if this is not,
Being
you
taken
know,
care of. Yeah. Like,
exactly.
and I
Yeah.
mean, there's a balance, it's like a little dance that you can play around with where you set the time in your life to do the things that are important. And that is for that, like is going to High Point or going to some of the trade shows something like that for you? Is it recharging your batteries to be with other colleagues and have those face-to-face meetings with the brands and
Yeah.
but then when you get back like okay, I'm
Cut
immediately
off.
have
Yeah.
my cutting off that off and now I'm concentrating on my client or my family and
For
then I'm going to
sure.
do that, it's like segmenting the life so that you're serving, you're present and you're
Hmm.
serving the person you're in front of when you're there, but
Yeah.
also know when to stop that and
For
know when to
sure.
focus on yourself. It's
For
such a
sure.
fine balance, I'm sure. But I think that you're doing it incredibly well. And we're
Oh,
so,
thank
so,
you.
so excited to see your journey and just cheering you on. I mean, you're doing
Thank
some
you.
amazing things. I love the diversity initiatives that you're bringing into the industry. And I've been very privileged to watch your growth and excited to see the good things that are happening for you. So we're going to make sure that you guys all get links to her Instagram, follow her, pay attention because, you're onto some big things, girl.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah, definitely follow along. There's some really exciting things coming that I can't quite share yet, but it's it's a blessing. I'm so
Oh,
thankful. I really
well, I'm
am.
so happy to hear that, and I can't wait to watch.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you for
you.
having me.
No problem. Bye.
Bye bye.